Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne. And we're also broadcasting over Channel 99 on Comcast in Lower Merion Township, as well as Verizon Fios, Channel 21 in Lower Merion. We've always been broadcasting in Radnor Township on Channel 21 for both carriers, but now we have extended our viewership, which is very nice. We like to bring you stars in the community who are doing something important, either in academia, arts and culture, politics, sports, film, whatever. And today, we're going to focus on my alma mater's museum, the Penn Museum at the University of Pennsylvania, for the King Midas exhibit that's coming up early next year. And our guests today are Nancy Tabas, who is the co-chair of the gala, which will open it, and Dr. Brian Rose, who's the curator of all these fabulous things that are being sent from Turkey. Is this the first time, Brian, that they're going to be shown in America?
Yes, it's an exclusive exhibit, so your eyes, those of you who come to see it, will be the first to see it in North America. That's to say, a phenomenal treasure from a royal tomb in central Turkey, the tomb of Midas's father, as we reconstruct it, dating to 740 BC.
740 BC. I'm not good at math. How many years ago was that, or how many centuries ago was that?
Well, 2,700 years ago.
2,700 years. And the stuff is still in good shape.
The stuff is in excellent shape, largely because the largest burial mound in Turkey was at Gordian, the site that's supplying all of these objects for the exhibit.
I've heard of Gordian, yes.
Gordian knot, cut by Alexander the Great.
Yes.
That may be the reason you know it.
Yeah.
Or because its primary king was Midas of the Golden Touch.
The Golden Touch. Well, Nancy Tabas has the Golden Touch because she is co-chair of the gala. And you have to wear something gold, right, Nancy?
We would like everyone to wear something gold. The Penn Museum actually hasn't had a gala like this in many years. We're very excited about it. It's going to be on February 5th, and it's going to be very, very, very exclusive. It's going to be fancy. We're bringing Gordian and the whole area to the Penn Museum. We're going to have people in costumes walking around, and of the era that Brian found this wonderful place in Turkey that had these costumes, and we're bringing some over, and we're going to recreate the era in the Penn Museum. And it's going to be, if you come early, which is to the exhibit and to the gala, you can get an exclusive showing with Brian walking you around. So,
how many items are going to be in the exhibition, Dr. Rose?
About 150.
150. What are some of the kinds of items people are going to see on display?
Well, we have 123 objects on loan from Turkey, most for the first time being loaned to North America, as well as objects being loaned from Greece and the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago, coupled with a lot of material from our own depots that's not usually on display. So you'll have a chance to really see what the Golden Touch of Midas looked like in actuality. And as I mentioned, this monumental tomb, the largest tomb chamber in Asia Minor, and also the oldest standing wooden building in the world. From that tomb chamber have come all of these objects that we're going to show you. So these will be bronze cauldrons, belts, cloth that has traces of gold, a kind of gold applique that made the garment shimmer like gold in the sun. That may be the origin of the story of the Golden Touch. Material from Assyria, from Greece, from the land of the Cimmerians and the Scythians north of the Black Sea. We'll try to unravel the secrets of the entire ancient Near East in the early first millennium BC.
Who discovered this tomb with all these treasures?
Well, fortunately, the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology discovered it.
Isn't that handy?
We've been excavating at Gordian for 65 years, so we have the longest
65 years.
continuous North American excavation in Turkey. And in 1957, Rodney Young, who at the time was a professor of classical archaeology at Penn and curator of the Mediterranean section, excavated this tomb, which was 170 feet high, so the height of a 17-story building. And because it was so enormous, the thieves hadn't ever been able to get access to the tomb chamber. So he found the tomb chamber completely intact and all of the objects that had been put there during the funeral in 740 BC.
And where was Midas himself?
Midas was at the funeral because this was a tomb for his father as we reconstruct it. So this would have been his first monumental undertaking as king, the completion of this giant burial mound.
Did you find the body of the father also?
Yes, it was in reasonably good shape given the fact that it was 2,700 years old. And it was
goodness.
covered with this shroud that had been coated with a substance called goethite, which causes the cloth to shimmer like gold in the sun. So there was golden cloth, there was a kind of purplish cloth that was also in the tomb. These were royal colors, and so we think that the members of the aristocracy would wear these golden gowns as they walked through the city, and that's why the city and its people and Midas himself gradually acquired a reputation as having a golden touch.
Have you ever been to Turkey?
Yes, I was in Turkey last year, and I've been there a few times. But last year I had the wonderful. It was wonderful. I happened to go, and Brian was our tour leader.
Yes, it was a wonderful tour.
We went with the Penn Museum.
How many people were on the tour?
25, including Brian. And it was just a wonderful tour. And Brian took us all the way around Turkey. And Brian, before he did Gorian, was the curator at Troy. And it was one of the most exciting things.
There were 7 levels of Troy. I remember from my...
9.
9?
9.
But something happened in 7A and 7B. I remember that from my freshman year at Penn with my Greek literature and translation course.
I know. Well, that's very good. Yes, there was an earthquake at Troy around 1300 BC, and after that we move into the 7A period, and that was a period where they were very conscious of security issues, and ultimately that period closed with an attack, and much of the city was destroyed. That was early 12th century BC.
I just remember that they would build a new city on the site of one that had been burned down
That's
or
correct.
had been destroyed in an earthquake.
Yeah, always.
So there were so many levels of Troy, but I think they figured out where Helen of Troy lived, which one.
Well, we don't know that there ever was a Helen of Troy.
Of course there was a Helen of Troy. How could you say that,
But
Brian?
we do know that women were seized along the west coast of Asia Minor and taken as slaves across the Aegean to Greek palaces in the late Bronze Age around 1200 BC. So if you've got women being seized as slaves and going from east to west, maybe they also went from west to east.
Interesting. Dr. Amy Gutman, my president, she's going to be there, right, on February 5th?
She will be, yes.
She'll be leading the parade, I'm sure.
Yes, at the gala, she definitely is going to be there. And Julian Siggers, who's the head of the museum, the two of them are definitely going to be there and ushering everyone into this gala.
And as Nancy mentioned, we have this fashion show, a Phrygian fashion show.
Phrygian,
Gordium was
right.
the capital of the Phrygian kingdom. And so the creme de la creme of Phrygian fashion, 2,700 years ago, will be on display at the gala.
And what are you going to wear, Brian?
I'm going to wear a tuxedo. I will not be one of the people modeling Phrygian fashions.
We'll get him a gold tie, though, so he can have the golden touch.
And you're already thinking, do you have anything in your wardrobe that's gold? Or are you going to buy something?
I think I might have something in my wardrobe that's gold. I have an extensive wardrobe, so I'm thinking that I will. But I'll see. If I saw something that was fabulous, I would pick it up because it is going to be a very special night.
Nancy and her husband Lee have been involved with the Penn Museum for 30 years, you
Around
said?
30 years, yes.
And you've been on the Women's Committee for...
Off and on, I shouldn't say this, off and on for like 12, 13 years. In recent years, I was chairman of the Women's Committee. And so that was and I've gotten very involved, much more involved as I was chairman. As chairman, I also sat on the Board of Overseers. So the museum is very dear to my heart.
I remember I've been many times. First of all, when I was an undergraduate, believe it or not, I was on the volleyball, women's varsity volleyball. Those are the days when 5-foot-tall Jewish girls were great volleyball players because nobody was allowed to spike. So the 5-foot brigade, and we got a charm bracelet, and they gave us a dinner in the mummy room at the museum. That was my first encounter with the museum, the first of many. But I remember going to a luncheon. Susan Anderson invited me when you unveiled that fabulous women's cookbook, and it was based on items that are ancient in the museum. It was what a brilliant idea! It was fabulous.
Actually, that was done under my time
Oh, yes,
as
I
chairman.
know, I
and,
know.
Excellent idea.
It was really one of my ideas, and
I bought so many of the
I-
cookbooks and the tote bags, and they made fabulous gifts.
Yeah, it was, and we had aprons too.
And I bought the aprons too. Yes.
Yes. We had a wonderful woman on the women's committee who designed the whole book, and Susan McDevitt is the woman's name, and she actually is the one that came up with the idea of a cookbook, and she's a fantastic graphic designer, and she actually did all the graphics in that cookbook. Were Susan McDevitt's, and we were so fortunate to have her expertise. And the other one that helped with the cookbook and did a lot of the editing and things is Jane Hickman, who's another professor at Penn, and her specialty is Greece, and it's actually food and jewelry. I mean, what a great specialty for an archaeologist to have. And Jane was just instrumental in that cookbook as well.
It was
and
amazing.
I have to give the people credit, and we really had our whole team, and it was really.
And you had hundreds of people at that luncheon
It was a sold out luncheon,
Oh.
and we only have a couple cookbooks left because when we first got them, I think we ordered 1,000, and a lot of people have been involved in women's organizations doing cookbooks, and when we came
Nothing
up with,
like this.
We came up with the idea, and everybody said, "Well, cookbooks aren't going to go," and a couple of the women said, "But this isn't going to be a cookbook like anybody else's,"
right.
and it wasn't, and we don't have any inventory. We have a few, so if anybody wants one of these cookbooks, you can go to the gift shop at the museum, and we do have a few left, but it's really.
What kind of memento are you going to give people for coming to the gala, the King Midas touch, Brian? Have you thought about that?
I'll leave this to Nancy.
Nancy?
I believe it's been spoken about that everybody's going to get a Gorian knot.
Oh,
So
okay.
but we're still planning this, and the invitations will be out momentarily, and they're going to be gorgeous. They're based on Gorian and King Midas's colors, gold and purple, and so they're going to have the Midas touch to the invitations as well.
And I don't know if we're using the the menu from the Midas funeral for the gala.
Is that the funeral menu?
Well, speaking
I
of
didn't
food,
realize, but the food is good.
The wonderful thing about this tomb is that we excavated it, and so everything was saved. So we've analyzed the sediment at the bottom of the vessels in the tomb, and from that we've been able to reconstruct the menu of the meal that people ate during the funeral in 740 BC. So we know exactly what the mourners were consuming. The kind of lentil stew, the kind of barbecued goat, the wine and beer mixture, which is lately had a new life in the form of Midas Touch beer. It's based on the original recipe. So some of these you'll be able to partake of at the museum.
Especially the hors d'oeuvres. A lot of the hors d'oeuvres are going to be based on the original recipes.
I love it.
What other occasion will you have to sample Phrygian delicacies?
Really? I mean, it's
Spell Phrygian.
Phrygian. Brava.
I get an A. Okay.
Yeah, you do.
You're really going to be transported back to the whole era if you come to this event.
Oh, I'll be there with bells on. Brian, how did you get interested in classical archaeology? Where did you grow up?
Well, that's how I got interested in it. I grew in an unusual way, though. I grew up in southeastern Ohio.
Oh, well, of course.
No,
There
but this
are many
no, but you
tombs.
won't get it yet. It was on the border of Ohio and West Virginia, and in high school I was extraordinarily bored because there wasn't a lot to do in that area. So I wanted to get out of Ohio at my earliest opportunity and out of the States if I could to sample some international experiences. And the easiest way at 16 to do that was to become an American Field Service Exchange student, AFS. I'm not sure if you know the
sure,
group.
absolutely.
And they will send you somewhere in the world. You have to agree to go anywhere in the world and into any kind of context that they choose to send you. That summer, which was the summer of 1973, they wanted all of us to experience alternative lifestyles. It was the 70s, of course. So they chose me for Italy, and they picked 10 of us, I wasn't in this group, and sent them to live in a monastery in northern Italy. And they picked another 10, I was in that group, and put us on an excavation just north of Rome in the area of the Etruscans, a town called Cerveteri. So I dug there for 1 month, the Etruscans, and
That's
then I
hard work, digging.
Yes, but I was 16. Then I dug for another month in a small town called Philadelphia, ironically, in Calabria, in southern Italy.
But that's spelled F-I-L, right?
F-I-L.
Yeah.
So then after 2 months of digging at 16 in Italy, I decided that I would make this my profession. And I decided that I wanted to go to the best undergraduate archaeology program in the nation. That was Bryn Mawr College. The only way I could major at Bryn Mawr College, at an all-women's college, was to go to Haverford, which I did.
Okay. And Bryn Mawr is still an all-women's college, although I think Haverford is now
Haverford is
co-ed.
yes.
Been co-ed.
Yeah, they
yeah.
broke down.
So my desire to get out of Ohio led me to my profession.
Oh, that's funny. I'd like to put up some pictures. We have some slides of the work that went on. Oh, tell us what this is.
Yes, we're in the tomb here, the tomb chamber of the Midas Mound, 740 BC, and again, the oldest standing wooden structure in the world. And you're seeing here some of the cauldrons that would have contained beer, because beer was one of the great concoctions of the funeral service. And you see the sirens, 4 figurines that are around the rim of the cauldron. And this is bronze, again, made in the middle of the 8th century BC, and this will be on display in the exhibit.
Amazing. There was another one. Oh, explain what this mosaic is.
Yeah, this is a watercolor of a mosaic that was found in one of the most important buildings on the citadel of Gordian, the administrative center of Gordian. It's the oldest colored mosaic in the world, dating to 825 BC, so the later 9th century BC. And as you see, it looks as if you've got a series of small carpets, all tossed in a slightly different orientation on the floor of the room. And that ties into the textile industry of Gordian, which was one of their primary industries.
Are the colors still as vivid?
Yeah, the colors are still as vivid as they were in the 9th century BC, and one of the panels will be part of our exhibit.
Amazing. I assume that the gift shop, Nancy, is going to do quite a business selling trinkets from the Midas touch, right?
We really hope it does. That's and the one thing Brian hasn't mentioned is this is the only place in North America, I think all the Americans, that any of this is going to ever be shown, because it's never going out of Turkey again.
No, it's a special arrangement we have with Turkey.
Exclusive, I
It's
love
an
it.
exclusive exhibit. Nowhere else in North America or anywhere else outside of Turkey will you be able to see this assemblage of objects.
Who made the connection with whatever person in charge of Turkey? I mean, I'm sure that you had to jump through hoops to get permission to move this stuff from Turkey to Philadelphia. Who made that connection?
Well, to an extent, I did.
Did you sell your firstborn to do this?
I didn't.
Okay.
No, but I sweat a great deal in the course of the last 3 years of the negotiations.
3 years
So
of
the
negotiations.
negotiations have been going on for 3 years. The idea for doing this was the idea of our former director of the museum, Richard Hodges, and then his successor, Julian Siggers, the current Williams director of the museum, picked up the idea and said, we need to run with this. And so we've been negotiating consistently with Turkey for the last 3 years to do this.
What is the level of the diplomats that you have to deal with in Turkey in order to accomplish this?
Primarily, you're dealing with a series of diplomats at the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, so the General Director of Antiquities, his deputies, the Director of the Ankara Museum. We're bringing in material from 4 different museums in Turkey, with about 100 coming from the Ankara Museum, which is especially rich in ancient Near Eastern material, but also Istanbul.
But these are high-level people.
Yes, they're very high-level people, yes.
Because I remember when the King Tut exhibit came to the Franklin Institute, they had the director of Egypt's antiquities, whatever, very impressive guy.
Yes,
Very-
Zahi Hawass,
Yes.
PhD, University of Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
And where did you get your doctorate in?
Columbia.
Boo, hiss.
Well, but I got my undergraduate degree at Haverford and Bryn Mawr, so I have a mainline connection.
Okay.
And he's been at Penn for how many years? Have
For
you been
10
at-
years.
Yeah.
Oh, 10 years, okay. What attracted you to Penn?
What did I,
What attracted you to Penn?
what attracted me to Penn?
Or who attracted you to Penn? Whichever.
Well, the museum is one of the best archaeological museums in the world. So to have an opportunity to be a part of that museum and to teach simultaneously with the material in the museum's collections was an incredible attraction. I don't think you'll find the same kind of opportunity at any other university in this country.
Have you taken any courses in archaeology, Nancy?
No, I have
Or
not.
audited any? Or
I have not. I have, but I have not. I have a daughter that has a has an undergraduate degree in archology, anthropology
really?
from the University of Pennsylvania, though.
Oh, look at that.
But I from the women's committee. It's really what attracted me to the women's committee is that we have a meeting once a month, and after it, one of the professors comes in and speaks to us for 45 minutes about their specialty, something that's going on in the museum. So I've gotten to know for many of the professors. I get to walk around in all the different areas of the museum that nobody else gets to go in, and I have a great interest in archaeology, but no, I have never taken a course in archaeology.
Does it bother you that it's called the Women's Committee?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I was going to say, because this is such a powerful group of people, and it's sort of like, it's down-putting to call them the Women's Committee.
It's an old.
It should be the Friends Committee. Why isn't it the Friends Committee?
We're looking into that, and I would say in the next year it's probably going to be called something else. But the Women's Committee has been at the University of Pennsylvania for 75 years, 75 plus years now. It actually started everything at the museum. We were the first guides. We were the first gift shop. We were the first development people. We were the
Pioneers.
first restaurant.
Pioneers in every realm.
And you talk about, we up to very recently, if you went in and saw any floral arrangements of anything, and actually still in the museum, we still put the floral arrangements in the museum. But on the outside too, up to very recently, we did all the flowers around the museum. So it's like an old, I hate to say this, like an old Philadelphia thing, because the art museum also has a women's committee.
I know.
And so does they used to have them all through the United States, and they used to have a big organization of them, but they have been falling one by one. But they are huge
Well, it's not
supporters.
that not that these committees are going out of business, is that they're changing their name to be either more inclusive
Well, they should.
or less derogatory towards women.
Well, I totally agree with you. And as I said, we are actually going through that whole positioning right now, and I would say in the next year there'll probably be another name for it.
I have to tell you, when I was an undergraduate at Penn, in Houston Hall, one side of it was the men's lounge, and women students were never allowed to set foot in there. The 1 week of the year when they called it the campus chest. It was like United Way, and I was representing my sorority, and I thought, where am I going to go to collect a lot of money in just 1 week? So every day between 12 and 1, I was the only woman. I would walk through the men's side, and they were so shocked to see a woman in their space that I raised the most money in the history of that campus chest.
That's
But then
terrific.
when the drive was over, I never set foot in there again, because those were the rules. There were no women allowed. That's how stupid we were in those days. Thank goodness that's a bygone era. But now we have to change the name of the Women's Committee. Okay.
Maybe you can come up with a name for us. We would love it.
You could have it as a contest among your listeners.
Yes, yes.
The Gordian Knot.
The Gordian Knot Committee.
Well-
And Nancy, now where did you go to school?
Actually, I went to Temple, and I was a history major, and I was going to go to law school too. I worked as a paralegal for a year and said, no, I really don't like doing research like this. And because at that point, which was the early 70s, I saw what a beginning lawyer was basically the same as a paralegal. So then I actually met my husband, got married, had 4 children, And
That'll keep you busy.
and I became an artist, which I had really no training. So as I had children, I started to go to art school. So now I'm a working artist. And
What kind of art do you do?
I do oil painting. I'm basically a landscape painter, and I have a studio in Manayunk, and I'll plug it. I'm at a show that opens tonight at Mainline Arts Center.
What
And
did
I'm
you
also
bring
in-
back from your trip to Turkey that shows up in your paintings?
That's a good question.
Have you done that yet?
Yes, I did a painting of one of the ruins we saw, and I have a painting that is a painting of the ruin, walking upstairs of ruins. But it's actually I'm getting much more abstract. So it's abstracts, but it's definitely it's the Turkish colors, and it's walking up a stairway, and it's what I do when I paint. I like to when I go around the world, I take a lot of pictures. So I'm very inspired by my travels.
Very interesting. Brian, what do you do for a hobby besides digging?
You know, recently I've started playing old Simon and Garfunkel and James Taylor songs in the galleries of the museum after closing time with someone else from the public relations staff.
Do you perform?
We do. It's on YouTube. You can look it up at the end of the show.
And he's very good.
Well, what
He's
instrument?
my friend.
What instrument do you play?
Guitar.
Who taught you how to play the guitar?
Well, I learned in Ohio when I was looking for something to do.
In the tomb of Midas's father,
Mm-hmm.
did you find any musical instruments?
No, not there, but I have found musical instruments in other tombs. As Nancy said, I was co-director of excavations at Troy for 25 years. So in several of the monumental tombs that we excavated near Troy, we found pieces of the wooden lyres that were used during the funeral service.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But how would we know what the music sounded like? That's sad that we don't
We're
have.
guessing to an extent. But these were stringed instruments, not radically different from what we have today.
Amazing. What's the most interesting thing that's going to be in the Penn Museum's exhibit? It's like
good
saying which is
question.
your favorite child, I know, but is there something that's so unique?
Well, I think you'll enjoy everything. And again, one of the wonderful things about the Penn Museum and this exhibit in general is that we don't just exhibit objects, we actually excavate them ourselves. And having discovered them, we can write histories about them that no other museum can do. So we can bring the thrill of discovery to a visitor in a way that's very unusual. But if I have to pick one object, I would say that it's an ivory lion tamer statuette, little figure in ivory of a lion tamer, a man with a lion. It seems to be part of the throne that Midas himself dedicated to the Greek god Apollo in his sanctuary at Delphi, and the Greek government is loaning us that for the exhibit.
Oh, it sounds fantastic.
Does.
Who is designing this exhibit? Nancy, do you know?
Yeah, we have an exhibit, a whole office that does exhibits, and the whole
but it's
team.
people internal?
Oh, internal. It's totally internal, and I know it's gold and purple. And every exhibit I've seen they've designed has been spectacular, and I'm sure Brian is having some say in this, aren't you?
Yes, no, we meet for 2 or 3 hours
Yes,
every week,
yeah.
finalizing the designs, the colors, the text panels, etc.
Yeah.
And are there going to be like interactive?
Yes.
Yes.
You can't do an exhibit these days
I
without
guess
interactives.
not. Yeah.
And Rodney Young, the man who discovered the Midas Mound tomb, fortunately filmed the first entry into the tomb in 1957. So we have some old videos of the original discoveries that will be part of the show.
That's exciting. And will little kids be allowed to come to the exhibit when
They'll
it
be
opens?
encouraged to come to the
Yes.
exhibit.
Okay. And
We
can
have
they
a
touch
major
things?
outreach.
I mean, they're so in tune with iPads. I think I'd need an engineering degree. I tried. I'd stick with my BlackBerry. But I see 3- and 4-year-olds pressing buttons at the Philadelphia Museum of Art and navigating through the iPad. Is there going to be something like that?
Yes, absolutely. In all of our exhibits, you'll find that.
I had to have a staff person help me because I couldn't figure out which buttons to press.
You need to tell us if you can't figure it out, and we'll redesign the systems.
No, you don't have to redesign it. Just walk with me, Brian.
Okay,
That's all.
that's a deal.
Anyway,
The whole museum.
Let's put the information back on the screen again and tell people how they can get tickets. February 5th, 2016, the Penn Museum Gala for the King Midas Touch. 215-898-4045, www.penn tabas.museum/gala. And our guests have been Nancy Tabas, the co-chair of the gala, and Dr. Brian Rose, the curator. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.